Today's Fantasy Football Almost Daily is brought to you by Game Blazers, where week 5 is Fury Week. That means $50,000 are on the line in all free-to-play contests, including 2 contests with 7-figure prize pools. That is 7 figures. It should be 5 figures. If it's 7 figures, it's going to be like $1 million prize pool, and they're only got 50,000. Somebody wrote this funny. Anyway, use promo code FFAD when you make your first deposit for a match of up to $100. And after onboarding, there's an offer for 2 rare packs at a $50 value for just $5 to add even more to your inventory for even more opportunities to enter lineups. So don't miss Fury Week and build your ultimate fantasy team at Game Blazers. We're also brought to you by Fanball, where you build contests against real players, not algorithms. Say goodbye to those mass entry grinders and embrace the sweat with a shot at the payout, because daily sports are supposed to be against people and should be fun and not a losing battle. Fanball.com is all set with a full slate of Week 5 NFL contests, including the Peacock, who pays out $1,000 to the top player. Check out the lobby right now on fanball.com. All right, let's get Waiver Wire Tuesday started with Less Than Jake.
From the Sports Hub Games Network, this is Fantasy Football Almost Daily with your host, Matt Harrison.
Fantasy Football Almost Daily, Matt Harrison, along with Scott Fish, the man who, you know, he played a little prank on me before the show started, acting like he was on mute, but I never know when you're actually on mute or not, because I've done the radio with you for like 10 years now, and you've left your mute button on several times in the past. Yeah, that's great, Scott. There's a lot of listeners out here.
I definitely have. I definitely have left the mute button on from time to time. That's for sure.
Oh, goodness. So, hey, we're going to go through most of the valuable free agency pickups in your fantasy league, how much fab to bid on that. But before we do that, let's go around the league and check out some of the latest news.
News team, assemble!
Go pretty rapid fire on these, Scotty. Malik Neighbors, Tyreek Hill, both done for the year with knee injuries. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means for some other guys a bit later in the show. But instant reaction to both of those guys?
Yeah, Tyreek Hill is an interesting one where I thought he might have been a trade deadline target for competing teams as Miami continued to falter, and he might end up somewhere else. And Malik Washington would be a sneaky ad there, but now it's just Tyreek Hill being out with a shredded up knee. I feel bad for injuries at all times. Like I hate injuries so much, but it is part of the game. The Malik Neighbors thing, that just as Jackson Dart comes in, he loses his top option. Wandell still looked good after that. I'm going to guess him and Theo Johnson are going to be interesting pickups this week. Jackson Dart too, maybe, but that offense, that's a terrible thing for both of them.
Yeah, it's quite a bummer. Another bummer, Braylon Allen looking like he's heading to IR with an MCL injury. Kind of means all systems go for Breece Hall. So if you were able to kind of get him and hold on to him, he's probably the top dog in New York with very little competition for touches.
Yeah, it's probably going to be mostly the Breece Hall show. I would guess going forward now. You might see Isaiah Davis get in more. I don't know how deep they're going to go into their bench, though. I think it's still just going to be mostly Hall and Fields for fantasy aspects.
Yeah. Another, you mentioned Fields. He's a running quarterback. Another running quarterback, Lamar Jackson. His status in doubt for week 5 with a hamstring injury. That's tricky.
Yeah. Cooper Rush looked not so bad when he came in after Jackson went out, but obviously you're losing all that rushing upside, and they weren't even passing for a lot of yards anyway. I would expect, and I'm sure we'll talk about him, but I would expect the Ravens to just lean more heavily on Derrick Henry and Justice Hill in, short passes to Justice Hill and Justice Hill running the ball, along with Derrick Henry's normal workload or whatever. And lean on the run. They're 1-3. They're already in a bad spot. This not a good spot. Not a good situation.
Not a good time for your star quarterback to get injured.
No.
Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, their status also in doubt for week 5. It could be the Kendrick Bourne show. And I don't have him on the list of free agents to pick up, but if both of those guys are deemed to be closer to out, and they play on Thursday, so you get to know this a little bit early, Kendrick Bourne could be kind of sitting on a sneaky good game here.
Yeah,
with a huge target load.
Yeah, you're gonna see Bourne and Robinson on the outsides probably. I think the sneakier upside pick, if they don't play, the sneakier one is Jake Tonjes. They'll still feed McCaffrey his 10 plus targets, but I think Jake Tonjes becomes interesting. He's gotten a decent amount of red zone targets since he took over for Kittle, and with those two options out as well, we might see him get some work in the seam with those two other guys on the outside mostly.
Last one, finally, Cam Robinson, the offensive tackle, was traded to the Browns. This is now his 4th NFL team in 2 years.
He got traded and he has to fly across the pod real quick.
Get on over there.
Potentially.
Man.
Yeah. He was they filled in for the Vikings after Darisaw left last year, right?
Fortunately, he played for the Jaguars to start his career, so he definitely has a passport.
Yes, I'm sure. It will not be his first overseas game, I'm sure. Yeah, that's good for them shoring up their line a little bit.
All right, Scott, you know what time it is. It's disco time.
I wanna boogie with you.
I find myself saying yowza, yowza, yowza to myself all the time.
I'm going to make a shirt with that shit.
It
says yowza, yowza, yowza.
And then on the back it says, I want to boogie with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't know if you can see in the bottom, but I was discoing while it was going.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, nobody else could, but I could definitely see your disco strut there. The only quarterback I have on the waiver wire list this week is Cooper Rush, and I don't really want him all that much. But in my Scott Fishbowl team, where 2 of my quarterbacks are on bye this week, I'm going to try to maybe pick him up and start him. He's 1% rostered. As we mentioned, Lamar Jackson's status in doubt for week 5, who suffered a hamstring injury that forced him out of the game against the Chiefs on Sunday. If Rush is forced into action, not a great matchup because the Texans are on the docket this week, and they're one of the best pass defenses in the league. They've only allowed 3 passing scores through 4 games and an average of only 197 pass yards against. So despite the fact that I need to pick him up for a league, I'm going to throw up in my mouth a little bit while I start him in Fishbowl.
Yeah, it's not even just that. Like you get him for this matchup, you get him for the Rams matchup, and that the Rams are middle of the pack, upper half of the pack against the pass, but their pass rush is incredible. And then you have a bye. So like you have potentially almost, unless you absolutely have to, like you said, you basically probably have 3 weeks you can't use him if you pick him up right now.
Yep, pretty much. And then you won't be using him again because Lamar Jackson will definitely be back after the bye. So this is terrible. Don't pick up Cooper Rush if you don't absolutely need a quarterback like me.
You were legally required to add a quarterback to the list.
Yeah.
So.
Kenneth Gainwell, he's 33% rostered. Jaylen Warren was an early morning scratch for the Steelers as they played in Ireland last week. And Gainwell filled in nicely. 19 carries, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground, added 6 catches for 35 yards through the air. But this week they're on bye, and it seems pretty reasonable to think that Warren could be back in week 6. So how much stock are you putting into Gainwell's really good game here?
I am putting enough stock in that I think we're going to see him share the load maybe a little bit more than he was prior to that. Just because he proved he could take on all. We knew he could do this. We've seen him with the Eagles that he could be a pass catcher. But you said it. Warren is almost assuredly going to be back after the bye. This is a breakout game, but I don't expect it to continue. I just expect him to be a guy you want on your bench in case something happens, or for an awesome matchup, maybe he'll get enough work and past game work.
Is this the time to drop Caleb Johnson?
No, you're probably a couple weeks late on that. Like the time to drop Caleb Johnson probably was about 2 weeks ago, but
yeah.
I feel like this is more confirmation. Like this last week was more confirmation.
Yeah, even with Warren out, Caleb Johnson didn't get like half the workload, so he's definitely the third fiddle in this offense right now.
Yeah.
Justice Hill is 11% rostered. He's a guy I dropped off of a Dynasty League roster last week, and then he went bonkers against the Chiefs, although mainly in garbage time. 3 carries for 76 yards and a score, 5 catches for 41 and a score. I mean, Derrick Henry has had 11, 13, and 10 touches in the last 3 weeks, and he had 19 in week 1. Something doesn't smell right with Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
But this week they faced that Texan squad that we alluded to earlier. They're not as good against the run as they are against the pass. They've allowed a rushing touchdown to every team they faced but Tennessee. And like you said, this might be a heavy dose of Justice Hill and Derrick Henry this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Hill becomes a guy who is flex worthy at times. And if there's an injury to Henry, obviously wheels up, but he's going to be flex worthy from time to time. This stretch while Lamar Jackson is out might be some good spots. Like you, Justice Hill. If I had a nickel for every time I have dropped and picked up Justice Hill in leagues, I could have bought a Sody Pop back in 1998 or something. For
maybe you should do transaction fees just on Justice Hill.
I have wanted him to be a thing many times and then realized he wasn't many times. But
stop trying to make fetch happen.
Yeah.
All right. On the other side of that matchup in the Houston and Baltimore game, Woody Marks, who's 32% rostered, his snap and touch totals kept growing every week. And we've talked about it a little bit on this show. We've talked about it a little bit on Fantasy Football Weekly. Now he's finally bypassed Nick Chubb, and that's on the heels of a report that says there's no timetable for Joe Mixon to return either.
Yep.
Marks had 17 carries, 69 nice yards, and a touchdown on the ground. And then he added 4 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown through the air last week in their big win against Tennessee. Now, Chubb still had 15 touches, but Marks had 21. And it's clear that the Texans want to run the ball and not put pressure on their hideous offensive line for pass blocking purposes. And the Ravens, somewhat randomly, I think, are the worst team in the NFL against the run this year. The second most touches, the third most combo yards, and the second most touchdowns allowed. Woody Marks is a guy that you should pick up if he's available in your league and probably start this week.
Yeah, this is a guy that I've been talking about for a couple weeks. He was my pre-spec 2 weeks ago on Fantasy Football Weekly. I made sure we talked about him last week on this show. I mentioned him as my second best running back to pick up on the Christopher Harris show over a week ago as well. It just felt every sign from the routes, the amount of routes he was running, the catch he made in that first game, and like his snaps, his touch, everything just increasing every week. And this week, we even after that game we got from D'Amico Ryans, I want to see what more Woody Marks can do out there, which is not generally just not something a coach says when he wants to, bring the touches down on a guy.
Absolutely. I think Woody Marks is probably the most interesting guy on the waiver wire this week. For me, it would probably be like a 30% bid if he's available.
Yeah, this is like we hate the line and we hate not the actual people on the line. We just think the line is
okay.
Yeah. We don't that's not a good O-line, which you would think, runners can't do much. But even Chubb until this last game was averaging over 4 yards a carry. Woody Marks is over 4 yards a carry. They're still managing to get it done. They're just not able to pass protect CJ Stroud very well. So that's, as you alluded to, that's maybe why they're running more. Marks would probably be my number one on this list. And you know how I am, once, like if you're sitting at 1 and 3, 2 and 4, if you need to make moves, this is a guy that might likely be the lead back for the Texans for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I
Might
I,
still
I
be a
wonder how,
timeshare, but he'll be the lead.
I wonder how many people would try to let him go from a team like in trade right now. Like, maybe they're thinking that Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon. Is there an opportunity to trade for Woody Marks right now, kind of on a buy high scenario?
I mean, it's possible. I like my buy high. Remember before the season, and you said 2 dynasty buys, and I'm like Tyler Warren and Taylor Kraft. I was like, buy these tight ends before they're top 5 at the end of the season. I don't mind paying full price on a player when I think that they can even go higher. You might be right. I will say the really nice game out of Woody Marks this last week, I might make that a little tougher, but I think teams would be willing to trade him because there's still a lot of question marks and it's still not a good line.
Yeah. Okay. How about this? Would you trade Derrick Henry for Woody Marks straight up?
No.
Just trying to get some things going.
You're just trying to find the baseline. It's somewhere below Derrick Henry, probably.
All right. Emmanuel Wilson is a running back for the Packers. He's 1% rostered. He's the clear backup to Josh Jacobs. Touched the ball 11 times on Sunday night for 81 total yards, and the Packers tie with the Cowboys. Jacobs was knocked out of that game for a brief time in the fourth quarter, but he did return in overtime. And he had a good day on paper, 26 total touches. He had 2 scores. But there was a few runs where when I was watching that game, I text Trevor Jones, who's a Packer fan, and I was texting him, hey, what's wrong with Jacobs here? What's wrong with the O-line? Why aren't they getting this going? And it was kind of off the heels of a bad couple of weeks before that for Jacobs. I'm not sure if his body can hold up to a whole year of 20-plus touches per game again. So Emmanuel Wilson's kind of interesting. They got a bye this week, and they get the Bengals in week 6, and the Bengals are a pretty tasty matchup for any running back.
So, yeah, I do think that this is a pickup you want to make. I like having a running back in this offense. If there starts to be more of a share, I think I saw and I did not look on Jacobs' injury, but the one thing I did see is it sounded like he just cut his knee. It was just a cut, and he came off for a while.
So he had a switchblade out on the field or something?
Yeah, it sounded like there was a cut and blood, and got it fixed up and came back in. But one of us should probably look that up before we start spreading these false rumors.
Well, cuts can get infected, You don't put Neosporin on there, you're in trouble. Are you looking up Josh Jacobs' injury?
Yeah, no. It does look like that was a confused injury report.
Okay. But I've just thought that Jacobs hasn't looked quite all the way right so far this year.
Even Yahoo Sports says he was just dealing with a cut on his knee.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, I'm gonna blame Yahoo.
Okay. Here's another Yahoo that you could pick up. He's not really a Yahoo. Tyjae Spears. Yes. He's still on IR, but his 21-day practice window opened this week. So he's going to practice this week. And if he looks halfway decent, you got to think the 0-4 Titans are going to try to put him in the starting lineup and right away. He was a top 13 running back in the final 3 weeks of the season last year, and that included 12 receptions in those 3 games. This week, the Titans face the Cardinals. Cardinals have been good against the run, but bad against receiving backs. They allowed the 6th most receptions and the 8th most receiving yards to opposing backs. So if Tyjae Spears is suddenly back on the roster, he might be in kind of a good spot to catch a lot of passes.
He should be, and he would make the offense potentially a little bit more exciting, bring up Cam Ward's game, give him a better outlet. Tony Pollard's been, catching just under 2 per game. I will say that it very well also could be an instance where Tony Pollard's been startable because of his volume. It could be an instance where Tyjae Spears ends up just ruining them both for fantasy.
It's possible.
Because this is a pretty low scoring, low yardage, low volume offense at this point, and Tony Pollard's been living off of 18 to 20 touches. But you're right. Tyjae Spears is the pass catcher. He's a more explosive player generally. I know Pollard had his days with the Cowboys that he looked pretty explosive, but Tajay is a little more explosive. I mean, it's a speculative ad and probably one that needs to be made, but I'd temper expectations just a little bit in that offense.
He might just be one of those bye week fill-ins if he's got a good matchup where it is a pass catching kind of day for the backfield. That's kind of how you utilize Tajay Spears.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. Romeo Doubs, he's 31% rostered. He caught 3 touchdown passes like last week. And if you're forced to start a Packers wide receiver, one of those weird leagues where you have to start one, it's probably Doubs for me right now over Matthew Golden or Dontavian Wicks. And even when Jordan Reed and Christian Watson return, I think Doubs is probably still in the conversation to be the top target. Packers, again, they have a bye this week, but a good matchup against the Bengals in week 6. And I don't think Reed or Watson will be back in time for that. So I think Doubs, along with your boy Tucker Kraft, they're probably the top 2 targets in this offense right now.
Yep. I feel it definitely felt like that, especially in that Cowboys game. He's seen the red zone and end zone targets, and it's with the injuries and whatnot. It does feel. I will say Golden got more involved this week, which I really like to see, and Love trusted him in a couple spots where he needed a guy to make a catch and needed to trust those hands. So like I'm not completely counting out Golden just yet, but it does feel like if I had to make the choice, Doubs is the choice at this point. I
agree. Luke McCaffrey is 1% rostered, and it's possible that this is just a Marcus Mariota thing.
It is, yeah.
Because his first 2 career touchdowns have come in the last 2 games with Mariota under center. But it's notable that Terry McLaurin's still injured, and if that lasts a little bit longer than anticipated, McCaffrey could continue to see some increased snaps, and maybe Jaden Daniels watching from the sidelines has gone, oh, this McCaffrey kid's not half bad. Tough matchup this week against the Chargers, though. They've only allowed 1 wide receiver touchdown through 4 games.
Yeah, this does feel like one of those classic second team practice with each other, find each other on the field. Yeah, chemistry type of things. It definitely has that feel to it, but you're right. The peripherals, the other side of it is McLaurin is hurt still. So that absolutely could be a thing. I'm probably not blowing a ton of money on what seems a little fluky, but it's very possible. And I do like the offense with Jaden Daniels and even Marcus Mariota, has been pretty fine. So yeah, I get it. If you have space on your bench and you have $1.
Sure. Let's talk about some of the Giants replacements for Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson, 43% rostered. He's a guy that I've liked throughout the year and have hit on a couple of times early in the season. Darius Slayton is 4% rostered. He probably takes over more of the perimeter role for Neighbors. They ended up basically just splitting the wide receiver targets after Neighbors went down last week. Each had 3 catches. And it was like really a brutal wide receiver matchup against the Chargers. Chargers were very good against the pass. This week, more friendly against the Saints. But the problem is the next month after that, I don't know if Slayton or Robinson is playable. Philly, Denver, Philly, San Fran.
Oof.
In the next 4 weeks after that.
And not only that, Jackson Dart dropped back to pass 26 times, and he had like 85 yards, 86 yards, something like that. I mean, that is not a lot of yards. I mean, Jackson Dart's fantasy stat is going to look decent because of his rushing, but we're looking at 2 wide receiver pass game options. He had 111 yards, 26 dropbacks.
Much better.
Yeah, 20 attempts on 26 dropbacks, only 111 yards. A lot of that's got to boost up if we want to start either of them. And you just mentioned those matchups aren't great. Again, very little money. Other people are going to spend a lot. I think Wan'Dale's been pretty startable a few times though.
Yeah. But I mean, that was Russell Wilson, and that was against some better matchups too.
No, and Neighbors on the other side.
So I'm a little nervous about both of these guys, and I think I would probably just moonwalk away from both and let other people spend their fab here.
That's me with Trey Tucker last week. We kind of mentioned that on the show that we were like, he'll have his spots, but it's not worth what other people are thinking it's worth.
It's tough to play that guessing game too. I mean, if you have Slayton or Robinson, I think both, kind of take a chance on me style starters this week against the Saints. But beyond that, I don't think you can start them for a month.
Yep.
So
yep, you're probably right.
Miami lost Tyreek Hill, and his replacements are Malik Washington at 3% rostered or Nick Westbrook-Ikine at 2% rostered. And Washington's snaps stayed pretty flat even after Tyreek Hill left last week.
Interesting.
While Westbrook-Ikine's snaps doubled his week 2 or week 3 output. And we all kind of liked Nick Westbrook-Ikine in Tennessee the last few years. He had a couple of games he had like 3 or 4 games in a row with touchdowns last year, I seem to remember. I think that people are picking up Washington, and I saw that he was the trending player on Sleeper.
Yep.
I think I'd zig and go Nick Westbrook-Ikine here.
Yeah, and he was the one people were talking about as, potential option if Tyreek Hill got traded.
Mm-hmm.
I might zap. I don't even what's not zigging, what's not zagging. Like I think there's a chance this offense is just
zigzag zug. I don't know. You're gonna zug.
I think it's just possible this offense sees even more of a decline. Maybe Waller becomes more involved, but
we're gonna talk about him in a second.
Yeah, but maybe the offense just sees more of a decline, and there's just even less pieces of the scoring pie to have. So I'm probably not jumping in. They could absolutely pan out. I like your Westbrook-Ikine take though.
Yeah,
I had not looked into that data. That's interesting.
Darren Waller, who you just mentioned, 9% rostered. He had 2 touchdown receptions last night against the Jets on 4 total targets. Yeah. And it was like his first game in like 2 years that he had played. But even maybe going forward, he's just like kind of their big red zone target, especially with Hill gone. So I think this is the prove it scenario this week for him, as the Panthers have allowed the second most receiving yards to opposing tight ends. And that's something that you can attack with Waller. If Waller can do it this week, I kind of believe it a little bit. If he can't do it this week, it's probably just no dice.
Yeah. And man, it's like just with the offense probably not going to be scoring as much as they were. I just don't like the offense. Maybe they don't get down there as much. They already were one of the worst at getting their running backs carries inside the 5 and 10 because they just don't get down there.
Yeah.
I mean, Waller's an interesting one to have because we know that he even stated late preseason, early in the season, he's like, I'm still kicking the rust off. So this is really, like you said, the first game that he's, seemed like the Darren Waller of old. Tight end's such a garbage position. I'd probably throw a buck or 2 or 3 on him if I'm in need at that position. I mentioned I like Jake Tonjes a little bit during this potential stretch if Jennings and Pearsall are out. But I can see throwing a buck or 2 and hoping that he gets a good share of those Tyreek Hill targets.
Yeah. Speaking of the tight end wasteland, Brenton Strange is firmly in that tight end wasteland. He's 28% rostered, and I don't think a lot of people are picking him up yet, or if they have, it's kind of probably a deeper league. And he doesn't have any touchdowns on the season. He's only topped 60 yards once, so hasn't put up the big point totals, but he's had 7 targets and 6 receptions in 2 straight weeks. He's 9th in the league in tight end targets and tied for 5th in tight end receptions. And this is a guy who in many cases is completely under the radar, but add a touchdown to his total right now, just 1. And suddenly everybody would be all over trying to pick him up right now. I think this is a sneaky move right now. We'll get Brenton Strange.
Yep. I used him as a take home the other week, and he did fine. But there was no score, so you barely remember it. Yes, he's getting a decent amount of work in that offense. We are finding out now that that Shane Waldron has kind of ruined BTJ as he does with his lead receivers everywhere he goes. And Travis Hunter has become like a designed, let's get you a quick pass play from the slot, and then you can go back to the sidelines guy, which is, it does feel like Brenton Strange has got the safest role in that offense. And I don't think I would have said that before the season started.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Anybody else that you have on your list that I didn't put on our shared list this week that you really like from a free agent perspective?
I don't think so. I've coyly brought them up at times, like Tonjes and stuff at times, but I don't think so. I don't see any that's standing out.
So coy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the
Isaiah
show.
Bond, actually. Isaiah Bond had 6 targets, 50+ yards. He had the issues before the season. Led the Browns. He's going to get the Vikings this week. Then he's going to get the Steelers, who will let a ton of passing yards to players. And there might be a quarterback change there. And who knows if that quarterback change is Dalen Gabriel, fellow rookie. Maybe I know he was late to training camp, but Isaiah Bond might be a little interesting as like a buck at the tail end.
It feels like the Browns now at this point, they have to kind of figure out what they have in both Gabriel and Shadur at some time this season. I mean, obviously they get to see him in practice and stuff, but I would imagine that both get at least 3 or 4 starts down the stretch for the Browns.
Yep. I can definitely see that. I can definitely see them getting time, and who knows what wide receiver they'll go to, and maybe it's Bond who led them in yardage this last week. Never know.
All right. Well,
speculative.
Thanks, Scott, for joining and providing all of your fantastic insights. And I'll see you. You're going to be on the Fantasy Football Weekly pod this weekend with Charch. I won't, but you're going to be on there with Charch, and I believe Kent. Is Kent filling?
Yes, it is Kent. Yep.
All right. Quick reminder: Epic Packs 20% off at Game Blazers this week. That's 10 items for just $60 with an opportunity for wild items and franchise items too. Use that promo code FFAD for up to a $100 deposit match only at Game Blazers. And this was Fantasy Football Almost Daily. We will see you tomorrow, maybe.